Perfect. All right, everyone. So again, we will be presenting on some registration information today. Melissa and I, we are university advisors in the Academic Resource Center. And so to get us started, we are going to share some tools, tips, and resources about prior to registering, some things to consider, how to browse for classes, some resources you can use as you start to think about what classes you might be interested in taking for spring 2021. We'll talk about, okay, it's your assigned date and time. What do you do? Again, registering for classes, how do you go about it? Just a refresher for those of you who maybe don't quite remember if you registered back in June with an advisor for first year students. And then again, we will cover at the very end after registering. So how to view your schedule, how to make switches to your classes. We do want to note that priority registration will begin as early as November 13th. And so that is a Friday, and priority registration does go to our students who are in athletics, who are part of our disability support services community, who are in our honors program, in our student worker program on campus, EMTs who work on campus, exchange students, as well as maybe a few more other small populations. But we will, if you don't qualify for priority registration, we'll be walking you through to how to locate your assigned date and time during this presentation. And so I'll pass it over to Melissa, who will start us off with prior to registering.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Jackie. So first thing we want to tell students, and we might have talked about this over the summer, I don't remember, but the bulletin, if you have not accessed it recently, write down the link bulletin.lmu.edu. So what is the bulletin? The bulletin has all the information you might need about the university, has information about the academic degrees and programs, the policies, the requirements. It has all of our majors and minors listed, all about the colleges. But what we want you to focus on when you go to that link, when you click on the side, academic degrees and programs, that pulls up in alphabetical order by college, all the different majors and minors at LMU. So you want to go through, click on your major, that will pull up all the objectives, the learning outcomes, the course requirements, the lower division requirements, the upper division requirements, but most importantly, a sample for your plan at the bottom. So that's what we want you to focus on as you register every semester, is that you're following that sample for your plan. So you can go through right now and look at all the different classes that are required for your major, and you can click on the specific ones and see if they count for anything else besides just the major requirements. So if they count for a core, you can go through and see that now, and that helps you in preparing to register. So you know you don't have to register for that core class because it's going to be covered by one of your major classes. So a few important information to note about the bulletin. It's updated every year. So when you go to the bulletin.lmu.edu, there's a little drop down in the top right corner. So for next year, say if you're supposed to be going to this year's bulletin, you would just click the drop down because the bulletin is updated every year and you follow the year that you enter LMU or the year that you declare your major. You always want to make sure that your DegreeWorks matches the bulletin. So we'll talk about DegreeWorks in a second, but the DegreeWorks basically takes everything that's on the bulletin and puts it in a checklist for you. And most importantly, always run your plans by a faculty or college advisor. And we'll talk about how to find who that is in a bit. A few more resources for students. BCLA students, bellarmine.lmu.edu/advising center. The BCLA Advising Center has their own checklist and worksheets. So when you go to that link, click academic information, and you'll see major minor worksheets and four-year plans. It has last year's and this year's major checklists and four-year plans that you can go off of as well. Also, CFA students, cfa.lmu.edu/advising. The CFA Academic Advisement Center for Student Success has created their own PDF with a checklist and four-year plan on one sheet. So click on Tools to Graduate. You'll click on Major Worksheets and four-year plans, and there they have all of their majors, as I mentioned, their checklist and four-year plan in one PDF. So next we wanted to talk about DegreeWorks. If you have not loaded your DegreeWorks, what is your DegreeWorks? DegreeWorks is your official LMU degree audit. It tracks all of your courses and requirements, including your minimum semester hours for a degree, core requirements, flag requirements, all your major and minor requirements, including your upper division requirements. It tracks your cumulative GPA. It tracks all of your semester hours, including any transfer work. It's a helpful planning tool. You should be referencing this every time before you register. And most importantly, you cannot graduate until DegreeWorks says you can. So as I mentioned, it's your degree audit, and it puts everything you need to do in a checklist. So how to get there? MyLMU Academics Registration, click DegreeWorks. We're gonna pull up a little sample of what it looks like if you haven't looked at it yet. So this is what it generally looks like. It has in the first section, all that you need to do, the overall what you need to do to graduate from LMU, and then in the lower orange sections, it expands to each of their own sections as you scroll down. So the green check box, the green check box means that you've completed it. The red open checkbox means that you still need to complete it. If it's a blue squiggly line, that means you're in progress. How to locate your assigned advisor. So when you go on your DegreeWorks, the first section is your general student information, and that will have your assigned faculty or college advisor. So if your email is populated on your computer, you can just click on their name and their email will generate. If not, on LMU search, on the little search magnifying glass in the top right-hand corner, you can always type their name in and get their information. So we say, always contact your official LMU advisor prior to registration for any official college or major specific questions you might have, to run your plans by them before you register. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Jackie.
Thanks, Mel. So now we're going to talk about, okay, how do you find out what your specific registration information is? And so to do so, you want to go to My LMU, click Prowl, you want to click Student Services, and you'll want to click Registration. This is going to open what we call the registration interface, which is kind of where you're going to handle a lot of your, pretty much every component of registration will be done in this interface. The first part you're going to want to check out is prepare for registration. So you want to click on that and make sure you select spring 2021 as your term. And this is how you locate your assigned registration date and time. And so when you click spring 2021, you'll get a list that looks like this. Your assigned registration date and time is kind of like the third or fourth red bar at the bottom, and it will say, you know, time ticket does not allow registration at this time. Please register within these times. That initial date right there is going to be your assigned registration date and time, meaning this is the earliest you can register. And this time, just know it can't be changed. It is assigned based on the number of units you have earned at the institution. And so again, or sorry, just the number of units you've earned, not necessarily at the institution, because this could include transfer and AP work. So it's based on the number of units you've earned. So if you transferred some AP credits, this would help in calculating, as first year students, help in calculating your assigned registration date and time. If you didn't come in with any transfer or AP units, you're sitting at 0 earned units at this point, right? Because you don't include the units that are currently in progress. Then your assigned registration date and time would be assigned based on the 0 units you've earned so far as a first year student if you didn't come in with any transfer or AP units. And so again, you can log in now and kind of check, this is the earliest date in which you can register for classes, date and time. Also in this section, you can check for any holds that you have. And so you can see, you know, if you have holds that prevent you from registration, it would be listed in this section. We'll talk about advisor holds in the next few slides, but you know, you'll want to always check what the hold is and also the originator of the hold, because the originator of the hold will be the department or the person who can lift your hold. And so holds are important because you'll want to address them as soon as possible, so that way you don't have anything preventing you from registering on your assigned date and time. So please make sure that you're checking for holds. once you've cleared your holds, you'll have a section that will be highlighted in green and saying you have no holds, which prevent you from registration. So this is the ideal spot that you'd be in, as you approach your registration date and time, meaning you're not going to have any issues when you go in and try to register. I also want to note that holds can be placed throughout the registration cycle. So just because you check it now and nothing is there doesn't mean that you shouldn't keep checking it periodically to make sure that no last minute holds have been placed on your account. So again, some common holds that affect registration that we want to review. The advisor hold is one that most, if not all, first year students may see on their account. If you see an advisor hold on your account, you'll want to take the following steps based on your college. So if you're a BCLA student, you'll want to attend a group advising workshop hosted by the BCLA Advising Center. And so be on a lookout for an email from them detailing how to sign up for these workshops. If you have an advisor hold and you're a student in the College of Business, you'll need to sign up for a group advising session with Skylar Van Dam, who is the principal undergraduate program advisor in the College of Business. So be on the lookout for an email from Skylar. If you're in the College of Fine Arts, the College of Science and Engineering, College of School of Film and Television, you will want to make sure that you are contacting your assigned faculty advisor, which is that person that Melissa noted back when we looked at DegreeWorks. That is going to be your assigned faculty advisor, oftentimes and most of the time someone within your major. So you'll want to contact that person to talk about spring classes to remove your advisor hold if you see an advisor hold on your account. Other holds that we saw, student accounts hold. So make sure that you're emailing student accounts. And if you see a student accounts hold, don't wait until the last minute to address the hold. Like I said, with any hold, you'll want to address it sooner rather than later, but particularly with student accounts, because sometimes it can take several days for the account to get lifted because they have to wait for payment or they have to wait for processes to get cleared before they lift the hold. So you'll want to just see, as soon as you see any holds that affect registration, it's good to try to address them that day or at least get the process started in addressing them. And also off-campus student life, if you're seeing that hold, students, you should have received an email from off-campus student life reminding you, if you're living off campus, to do kind of a webinar or an orientation, just so that the university is aware that you're living off campus, where you're living, and also that way they can track any off campus, where you're staying off campus for the semester. And since that's the majority of us, make sure if you are living off campus and you have an off campus student life hold, I would first look for an email from off campus student life. If you don't see one, you can contact our office for next steps on how to remove that hold. Now you've checked for your assigned registration date and time, you've checked for holds. What do you do next? You've looked at the university bulletin, you kind of have an idea of what classes you want. You can go ahead and start browsing for classes. So starting to see what's being offered, what times, what sections, what modality. So you'll want to make sure that when you browse for classes, you select spring 2021. And know that when you browse for classes, you can browse by subject, you can browse by course number, you can kind of do an advanced search where you filter out, certain days or times of the week that you're looking for classes. One search bar that I do want to note is the core attribute search bar. And so this is going to be the search bar you use if you are trying to complete a core requirement. So, that our core requirements, there are certain courses that can count for, say, theological inquiry or studies in American diversity. You'll want to use this search bar in order to pull any course that's going to fulfill that requirement. And so you'll want to type in your desired core category. And like I started typing in theological inquiry, and you can see that a list of different core requirements start to populate. A couple notes on the different annotations. So FN explorations is going to stand for your explorations core requirements. So that's going to be your creative experience, your historical analysis and perspectives, nature, science, technology, and mathematics, and understanding human behavior. Those are the explorations core requirements. If you see FND, those are going to be your foundations requirements. So a lot of these courses are going to be courses you'll want to take in your first and second year at LMU. This is going to be, first year seminar, rhetorical arts, quantitative reasoning, philosophical inquiry, theological inquiry, and studies in American diversity. You'll want to, INT stands for your integrations core requirement. These ones you'll typically take junior and senior year, but they do consist of your faith and reason requirement, ethics and justice, and interdisciplinary connections. And lastly, if you see H&R, so you see on this list, there are two theological inquiries. H&R theological inquiry is really going to be for students within the honors program at LMU. So if you're in the honors program, you'll want to click the H&R options. If you're not in the honors program, you won't want to click that. So you'll want to make sure that you're just, if you see two theological inquiries pop up, you'll want to make sure you're clicking the appropriate one, so that way it populates the appropriate classes that you're eligible for. And so when you do click on you'll see when you do click on a section, you'll see that a list of classes will appear like so. On the bottom here, you can expand more options so that you don't have to keep flipping through the pages. I think it goes up to 50 per page. We always recommend students click on the title of the course and note a few things. The first thing we want you to know is on the class details. You'll want to know what the CRN of the course is. So ultimately, when you're ready to select a course or you think that's a course you want to take, always note the CRN number, and we'll tell you how that kind of plays out when you register. But that's going to be a unique 5-digit code that's associated with each class. And so say, for example, if this class had 5 sections of the same class, each class would have a different CRN code, which again is tied to the specific section, professor, date and time, et cetera, that the class is offered. So you'll want to note CRN in the class details, what section it is, subject, course number, title, credit hours. You'll also want to double check the course attributes. So say you're trying to look for a class that fulfills studies in American diversity. Clicking course attributes will verify that that class will actually count for studies in American diversity. It doesn't help to double check. It will list any core or flagged requirements. And if your major has like a specific course attribute tied to the major classes, it would also list it in this section. You'll want to click restrictions. So, major, college, special population. So again, certain courses will have restrictions. So if you see a restriction, you'll just want to verify that you've met that course restriction so that you don't run into issues registering for the course. So say a course is restricted to business majors only, you'll want to make sure that you're a business major so that you won't have any issues registering for the course. If you're not a business major, unfortunately, that course is going to be restricted to those in that major. We do also want to note here that instructor and meeting times right underneath it. We don't have a slide for it, but instructor and meeting times will be something you'll want to check out because it will list the modality of the course as well, whether it's a hybrid course, an in-person course, an online asynchronous course, or an online synchronous course. You'll want to be sure that you're selecting courses kind of based on what's being offered and double checking to make sure that the instructor in the meeting time is the modality that you're intending to take it in. Always check for course prerequisites. So if some courses do require that there are certain prerequisites that you take prior to the course, make sure that you just, similar to restrictions, if there's a prerequisite, make sure you meet it. Any classes that you might have needed to take before taking this class. In addition to that, sometimes the class has a minimum grade that you need to complete as well. And so Melissa will go ahead in the chat box right now. She'll drop the link for a worksheet that we've created. Generally, students will have this worksheet we hand out if we were in person, but if not, you can always click this and use it as a kind of a graphic organizer to help you plan for graduation. It has just a list of like ways that you can take, you can indicate which course you want to take, what it counts for. And it's always helpful if you do need to meet with a faculty or college advisor, kind of bring the sheet with you, so to say, right, in your session, have it filled out so that you can also be like, okay, well, I already have these courses that I've drafted. What do you think? And you can kind of have a conversation using something that you've already created. That's always helpful in getting your conversation started with your faculty or college advisor. And we always recommend make sure you have backup options, especially, as a first year student, right? Registration date and times are assigned based on units you've earned. So, students who are closer to senior standing are going to go before juniors, are going to register before sophomores, and first year students register at the tail end of the registration cycle. Because you have so many more semesters to complete your degree, you have a lot more flexibility. So sometimes you might not get your primary or even your secondary option. So we always tell students it's really important to have backup options. And in the next section, Melissa will kind of talk about why it's important to have those backup options readily available when you do register. And so we do have a question. So if you want to take a class outside of your major that is restricted, can you ask your advisor to allow you to enroll? Usually no. Usually if a class is restricted to a certain major, it's really only restricted to students in that major. Sometimes there is some leeway, but you would have to contact the chair of that department in order to see if there's any flexibility in letting you into the course. Some colleges, like the College of Business, they're pretty strict on like whether or not students outside of the college can take business courses, but there might be some majors you might see that if you talk to the chair, they might have to wait until everyone registers from the major first just to make sure they get classes, and then maybe they might allow students to register after the fact with an override. But either way, you're going to need to talk to the chair of that department because they would be the ones to grant you that override.
And it's most likely if you're trying to add the major or add the minor, trying to get into that field, that subject, that you can get that override if it is restricted to major.
Absolutely. But typically, again, if it's just mostly because you're interested, or mostly if it's just because you're interested, there might not be as much flexibility. But yes, as Melissa mentioned, if you're interested in going into that field or you want to explore that major, there might be more of a conversation.
Within CVER, is it one of the bio or chem standard classes or one of the classes you need for the med track? Oh, engineering. So yeah, that one you would have to talk to the chair.
Absolutely.
They release some of the like the bio, the chem for students who want to get into CVER. They release the hold. Jackie, I don't think we've been given the date yet.
So at the end of the registration cycle.
Yeah, once everybody has registered, but I haven't heard of that for engineering.
So if you do want to specifically look at an engineer class, we would say refer to the chair of the engineering department for that response. But yeah, pre-med and students who are maybe trying to transfer into CVER, there is some of the lower division classes are the college restrictions do get lifted at the end of the registration cycle if that was your interest. But good question. I would always say, you can always ask us, email us. We'll have our contact information. If you have an inquiry about a certain course, sometimes we'll have some insight as to whether the course typically allows for registration for students outside of that college or restriction. But you can always ask us or just email the department chair directly. Absolutely. Oops, sorry about that.
Next question, Jackie says, is it too late to add a minor in a different college for the spring semester?
Depends
on the minor.
If you're interested, I would say make an appointment with us so that we can chat about it and let you know if it makes sense for you to add in the spring. Most minors, honestly, are about 5 to 8 classes. So even if you don't get into the spring, it's okay. Like you still have, 6 semesters to finish a minor. But again, if you are interested in starting something in the spring, make an appointment with us so that we can talk about the minor and the feasibility for the spring semester start. Absolutely.
But for most first year students, the minor is a minimum of they have the 3-year plan. So you would start in the fall, minimum, if anything. So if you're looking to add the minor just to take the class, that might be too late, but not for the overall plan of your minor. But again, as Jackie said, make an appointment with us. We'll look over the classes that you should take for the spring, whether that includes the first class for the minor or not, if you're able to get into it.
Absolutely. All right, good questions. We will definitely have more time for questions. Feel free to keep populating them, but let's go ahead and I'm going to pass it back over to Melissa, who's going to talk about registering.
Yeah, so it's your registration date and time. You've browsed classes. You have everything you need, and it's time to register. So back to MyLMU, PROW, Student Services, registration. But this time, instead of clicking the browse classes, you're going to click the first one on the right that says register for classes. So you're going to select spring 2021 as your term. Right now, if you try that, it's only going to let you select fall. You're going to agree to the terms, and then it's going to bring you to a page that looks exactly like the browse classes. But what we want you to look at is the little tab on the top that says enter CRN. So as Jackie mentioned, the CRN is the unique 5-digit code for each course and the subject and the section number. So what I tell students is when you were browsing classes, you wrote the CRNs down. So have the registration interface on one side of your computer, have the Word document with CRNs on the other side of the computer, click enter here, add another for how many classes you want, whether that's 4 or 5, and then copy paste, put all the CRNs into the fields. When you do, it'll show you on the side what the classes are. So you always want to make sure that those are the right classes of what you think you're registering for. Click add to summary. It's going to take you to like the pending area. So it means that these are in your cart, but you're not in the class yet when you see all the gray hashtags. So you want to look on the bottom left that, yes, those are indeed the courses on this day and time. None of them overlap. Then you look on the bottom right that those are the courses in the section that you think you're getting into. You need to click submit because you're not in the classes until you click submit. So you click submit, everything goes to color. You have color schedule on the bottom left. It says green registered on the bottom right. And then you're officially in the class. If anything happened while you were in the middle of add to summary and submit, if a class got full, for example, you have the CRNs directly, the paste to enter CRNs right there. So if you had your backup CRNs, you can go ahead and enter those. But if you didn't have any backup CRNs, you're gonna have to search the long way. Search by subject, search by course number, search by keyword in the course name, search by core attribute. So this time when you search for them, you're gonna see that the ones that are open, how many seats are still available. But we always say, make sure you click on the titles, make sure you're clicking for the restrictions, for prerequisites. But this time you can see it, the class is open, click add. It's gonna again take you to the pending area where you haven't gotten the class yet. Make sure it fits in your schedule, click submit. And once it turns to green, you're in the class. So if while you were doing that, you got the error, one of the classes that you wanted was full, but you saw on the list, it said that there was a wait list available. How do you add yourself to the wait list? So if there is a waitlist option, and again, not all classes have the waitlist option, it'll say underneath how many seats are open. If it says full, but then it says 10 of 10 waitlist seats available, 9 of 10 waitlist seats available. The higher the number of the waitlist seats available, the better the chance you have of getting into the class. So you're going to want to select one of the ones that has a waitlist option available if it's full. And then on the drop down of status, you're going to click the drop down and click waitlisted from web registered. Because if you try to add the web registered, it's going to tell you that it's full. It's going to give you an error message that it's full. So you have to click the drop down and select waitlisted and then click submit. And that will get you on the wait list for the class. So I tell students, always make sure that when you're adding yourself to waitlist, like one, you can add yourself to as many waitlists for as many classes as you need. So for example, I helped a student over the summer that like 4 of the 5 classes he needed, he had to get on the waitlist for. So, but that only means that he's only in like one class. So we tell students always, you can add yourself to as many waitlists for as many courses, but you're not in the class. There's no guarantee that you're going to get into that class. So always have those backup options that Jackie mentioned, your plan B, your plan C, because you want to make sure you're in 15 to 17 units, that you're registered for a full course load, even while you're waiting for those waitlist classes. So you can get into the waitlist class anytime from the time you register until the first Friday of the semester. You have a month and a half, you have 2 months almost, depending on when your registration date is, to get into that class. So you're going to want to be checking, but you're always going to want to still be in a full load while you're waiting for those waitlist classes.
Absolutely. And we'll chat about in the next segment about like how do you know you're off the wait list and how to make those class changes as well. And so, say you've kind of got a preliminary schedule, you've registered, as best as you can for this first round, and you want to look at your schedule. So after you register, you can go ahead and click schedule and options. And what it will do is pull up your schedule on the top, a detailed schedule on the bottom, more of a visual schedule. There will also be a print and an email button on this page for you to do so. And as Melissa said, you always want to be in backup options. And also, like, sometimes you just change your mind about a course. So how do you go about adding and dropping classes? First, in discussing the wait lists, you'll always want to check your Line email, because notification that you are off the wait list and you can register for a course will come through your Line email. And so we always recommend students, if you're pushing your email to your phone or some device, or you're checking regularly, we always recommend that when you're on wait list, because that notification can come at any time. And so you could come at Christmas Eve at 6 p.m. It could come, on New Year's Day. It just really depends on when a person drops that class. And so what will happen is, say, you are next up on the wait list and someone drops the class, you'll receive an email to your Line email saying, you are now off the wait list. You can register for this course, but you will have a timeline. There's a 24-hour time frame where you can make this change. So they'll say, you need to do this by this time, on this date. If you do not make those changes within that time frame, it goes to the next person on the wait list. And if you say you missed it and you still want to be in the course, you would have to re-add yourself to the wait list. So that's why we say it's really important that you're regularly checking your Line mail, because again, that time frame is only 24 hours from when you receive the email to when, if you don't make any changes, it goes to the next person on the wait list. And so say you got the email, you're ready to make changes, but wait, this person's in 15 units already and they need to add a 4-unit course. Well, it's not going to let you do that, because 18 units is the maximum you can register at one time. So what are you going to do? You're going to have to drop a course before you can add the waitlisted course. And we want to kind of show you how to do that in the system. And so what you'll want to do is, under the action, you'll want to indicate which course you want to add. Typically, this is either the course you want to add or maybe the course you've been waitlisted for, that you got the notification that you can sign up for it. You'll want to click Web Register. Web Register indicates the class you want to add to your schedule. Then you'll want to indicate what class you want to drop. So Web Drop indicates what class you want to drop from your schedule. You'll want to make sure you click Conditional Add Drop. What that means is the system will not drop you from your current course unless you're successfully able to register for your other course. So this is almost a safety net for students, because the alternative is you would drop the course first, right? But what happens if something happens when you try to add the other course? Now you're out the new course and the old course, right? So it's a safety net for students. So you'll want to click Conditional Add Drop, especially when you're making a swap like this. And you'll definitely, again, just to finish the transaction, click Submit. A few things. The system really only recognizes like one swap or one transaction at a time. So don't go in and try to click like 3 web registers and 2 web drops, and the system just won't recognize which classes to prioritize. So we always recommend just doing, one swap at a time, and then going through and if you need to do another swap, finish one transaction and then move on to another one. So with that, we do want to share a little bit about our office. So Melissa and I are general advisors at the university. We can answer general questions you have about academics at LMU. If you're curious about something, that question of, hey, this class is restricted to this major, what are my chances of getting it in? Having that conversation of, well, why do you want to take the course? Who should you contact, etc. We can definitely talk you through any of that. We can review any of the information that we've gone over. We really also say, like, we're a great place to start. Like, if you're like, I don't even know, I know you've gone through all these resources, but it's a lot of information and I don't really know where to start or put things together, you can make an appointment with us. And we always say, we're a great like first touch base for you. And then that way you can take a plan that we've talked about and you understand to your faculty advisor, so that, if the faculty advisor says, well, why did you choose this class? You can tell, well, I looked at the university bulletin, it looked like this class was next in sequence, or like, oh, wait, I'm actually going to save this class for a different semester because of XYZ, right? And so we can definitely help you prepare for that conversation with your faculty or college advisor if needed. And so with that, I do want to, we're going to leave room for questions, but first I'm going to share our contact information so that I can go ahead and end the recording, and then we will go back to to the class and we can answer any questions that you may have. And so with that, thank you so much for listening to this presentation. If you have any questions, this is our email. You can schedule an appointment with us using the link here. But this is absolutely we're absolutely a resource for you throughout this registration process. We know that it's the first time you're really undergoing the registration cycle on your own. And so we want to be here to support you. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.